Hello everyone, just a quick word from your friendly editor/husband. For all of you who listen to So I'm Watching This Show and own an Android device, do me a favor. Go to the Google Play Store and download the Podcast Republic app. It's a fantastic app that allows you to get all of your favorite podcasts directly on your Android devices. I use the app and love it. I can search for the podcasts I want to listen to, select them as favorites, and have them all just a click away. Make sure you set So I'm Watching the Show as a favorite so you don't miss any new episodes. Again, the app is Podcast Republic, available on your Android device. Thanks!
What are you drinking?
That was a Steel Reserve.
I got these fancy, spiked seltzer called Wild Basin.
Oh, is that what you're drinking?
Yeah, I have. It's just, the one I have right now is just lime, but there's one that's like lemon hibiscus agave or some shit, and I was like, can't wait to get to that stack.
I was hoping you were going to be drinking wine, because I was going to say the blood of Jesus, how appropriate.
No, not unless he tastes sparkly and like lime.
Maybe.
You never know.
Well, how are you doing on this beautiful Easter day?
Good. Yeah.
Now that things are back to normal, that the country's reopened and everybody's healing from this liberal hoax.
Technically, this is 2 days before Easter, but
True.
But
we
also,
we have 2 more days until everything is fixed.
Until everything's totally fine, and we're packing the churches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel good. I don't really know. I don't know where my head's gonna be at in this moment. So,
yeah, it doesn't matter. That's what I've come to the realization that nothing's real, nothing matters.
Time is a flat circle, y'all.
Mm-hmm. Life is like an hourglass glued to the table. I tell ya. So, hello everybody. I am Will,
and I'm Kristen,
and this is So I'm Watching This Show. On today's episode, we decided this a while ago. It had been on our short list, but we like to do topical episodes, and we like to do holiday stuff adjacent and all that. And so we're like, you know what would be fun for Easter is to do a good Christian movie. And because there are ones, I'm sure we will get into it in this episode. There are Christian movies that I actually super like. And Dogma didn't feel right. It's a little on the cynical side.
Yeah, that's a little cynical and
dark.
Look, we're already in such a dark place right now. We don't need to go to a darker place with our Easter entertainment.
I'm so sad. I just remembered it was supposed to be Peter Rabbit.
Yeah, we can't.
We were going to do Peter Rabbit 1 and 2. I forgot about that.
Yeah. I feel like Peter Rabbit was coming out the week or so after, but we were going to do them both.
Yeah, we were going to cover it for, man. We should have done, if we wanted to be topical, we should have done I Still Believe. But...
Oh, God, no, absolutely not. That's not the kind of movie about Jesus I want to watch.
Oh. KJ Apa, I love him. Actually, he was on Ellen a couple weeks ago, and he is wickedly charming.
Of course he is.
Well, but what does that mean? How would you know? Have you seen him in interviews and stuff?
I believe he is.
Okay.
I still believe.
Do you still believe?
I still believe.
No, he was very cheeky, and because Archie's such a wet noodle that it's
yeah, but that's Archie, and the point, the whole point is that he's able to make Archie still be charming, even though he's just like a noodle. And plus, he's from New Zealand. Of course, he's going to be charming.
He it was for Ellen's birthday. He sent her a video message where he was out on his balcony, and the whole joke was about how he's naked, but you couldn't see. And the way he turns the camera, you could completely see his reflection in the glass behind him.
Oh,
so his little butt's hanging out. And it was very funny. And
That's
he was
silly.
He thought it would be funny for Ellen. So very, very Easter. So.
Yeah. Super Easter.
Anyways, so the movie that we decided to do was Saved. Was it 2004? 2004.
I had it open and then I went down deep in a hole about Tiger King, so I navigated away.
Saved is a 2004 American satirical comedy film directed by Brian Danley, starring Jena Malone, Mandy Moore, Macaulay Culkin, Patrick Fugit, Eva Amare, Martin Donovan, and Mary Louise Parker. Its plot follows a teenage girl at a Christian high school who has sex with her boyfriend in an attempt to cure him of his homosexuality. She gets pregnant and becomes a pariah among her peers.
That's pretty much the whole thing.
What was your introduction to this movie? Do you remember?
I honestly do not remember. This was after we graduated from high school, so it would have been when I was in college. I feel like I either watched it with my college friends or my family at like a family Christmas, but I couldn't tell you which.
My introduction to it was I used to work in 2000, I guess it was closer to 2005. I used to work at the Galleria, which was a fancy salon and spa in my hometown in Maryland. And I was the check-in person. And so I would sit at the front desk and I would just, it was boring a lot of the time. So I would just read everything. I just had magazines and I'd go through and read every article. And there were a handful of movies. It was like maybe Entertainment Weekly where it was like, you know, what to watch or like gems or something. And this was, one of them was Debs. I remember that's how I found out about Debs.
Now you definitely introduced me to Debs.
And this was one of them. And they were, it was sold to me very much what it is. They were like, it's kind of a small movie. It's an indie movie. It's got some cool people in it. It's got some really interesting things to say. It's kind of biting. It's kind of wholesome. And it just felt right up my alley. And so I went to Suncoast, which in the old world was a place where you could go and buy films like that in that moment.
You could buy DVDs right then. You just have to drive to the Charlestown Center.
Which was across the street, and went home.
So close to you.
And watched it. And it was especially at the time, it was like very eye-opening for me. We've talked a lot through this podcast about both of our journeys with religion and Christianity, and there's a lot to say, and we'll probably get into it here as well. But as a refresher / for new people, I was raised, as I say, in a moderately Christian, moderately conservative household. So we weren't crazy, like we weren't like thumpers and like we weren't unreasonable, but it was definitely known. As a matter of fact, there's so many pictures now that when I look back on Facebook and stuff, like from even like 2006 and 2008 and stuff, where we're in my kitchen and my mom's like Republican propaganda is still up on that. Do you remember?
It's just like around,
the Christmas cards from George and Laura Bush. And like,
gosh, I long for a Christmas card from George and Laura Bush at this point.
Do you remember Laura Bush? She was a special one.
I'm just like, come on.
It was funny. It was a funny point among my friends. And I had a journey. I had a very long and intense and involved journey from where I was to where I am now. And I was not one of the people, I was never an all or nothing kind of person. I'm a very yes, but, if, then. And so I never found it within me to completely turn my back on things, both, you know, my Christian and I'll at least say moderate roots and stuff. I'm very sort of like, let's try and be level headed and all that stuff. And so I really liked this movie because it did a fantastic job of really skewering the Christiness of it all.
Yeah, especially like this particular brand of Christiness, which is so intense.
But while also not being hateful, while not being nasty or snide.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point of the movie is like the rest of them aren't trying to be nasty and snide, but Mandy Moore is nasty and snide. I fucking love Mandy Moore. This, I think, is one of her best acting outings. In no joke.
She's so good, and in so many ways, she is elevated amongst her peers in a way that she never got credit for. And I suppose it's because she wasn't flashy about it.
Yeah,
she just did good work.
Well, and do you know what I was thinking earlier? Because she sings a couple of songs in this movie, especially the movie opens with her doing an actually kind of horribly vampy version of God Only Knows. But it only gets there at the end. And I was just listening to her sing and I was like, wow, obviously Christina Aguilera is like the powerhouse of our group of pop stars. But I think Mandy Moore has like the best commercial voice.
Would you say? Wow, that's bold.
I would, yes, because Britney Spears is so her own thing and Jessica Simpson is so her own thing. And then Christina Aguilera is obviously like a whole other, she's like the Mariah Carey and, you know, that kind of thing. But I truly think, yes, she has, in my opinion, the nicest regular voice.
It's very dulcet.
Yeah. It's clear and it's sweet, and she
it's not
can
quite cooey, but
it's
a
not
little
cooey,
bit.
but she can also hit those notes. But she's not like a showboat about it, and I think that's what I appreciate so much.
Let's just play the entirety of Senses Working Overtime.
Yeah, 100%.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was around the same time because it was. I think it was a year later, but I bought that album because I read a review at the Galleria about it, about coverage. But yeah, so I actually wrote a lot of notes about this, and I'm not entirely sure what I plan to do with them. But I did write one of my first ones, and it's when Hilary and Mary are at the gun range. And Hilary's like, I'm saving myself for marriage, and I'll use force if necessary.
Yeah.
And I literally wrote, I was like, Hilary Faye is kind of a mood. And I quickly started to rue that statement.
Yeah. Well, Hilary Faye is kind of a Becky Lehman.
She's worse, but
well, she's way worse than Becky. Well, Becky Lehman is a murderer, though.
Well, the one time, the rest of them were her mom. Hilary Faye's more.
One time.
Hilary Faye's more like Kirstie Alley, more like Gladys Lehman.
That's true. It's the type of thing that we've talked about before, where she is. Well, I can't even say she's like the Bryce Dallas Howard from The Help. Because I was going to call her the like friend, but you think the friend is worse because she doesn't even have the courage of her convictions. So Hilary Faye is the Bryce Dallas Howard because she believes 100% of the bullshit coming out of her mouth.
What do you feel about her character? Because we get a very clumsy redemption at the end. And I think the redemption is warranted. And with this movie, there's only so much it was capable of doing.
Sure.
I think it's fine. And frankly, if Hilary Faye was even 20% less awful, I would think of her as tragic or sympathetic.
Sure.
Because it's my biggest issue. Here we go. Buckle the fuck up. Here's the conversation.
Buckle up, Buttercup.
Yeah. Strap your tits in. These people are behaving according to the parameters that were given to them.
Right.
They have been failed at every possible way by their superiors, their parents, their leaders, and their peers. And I have a hard time being super angry at all of them for behaving the way they were trained to behave. And Hilary is a slight exception because I do think she does go too far.
Yeah.
A couple of times. But she also does, like Bryce Dallas Howard, she does believe it. That scene of her praying where she's pulling on her face.
Yeah.
For a second, I was like, wait a minute, who is this? Like,
so I do agree with you, but I think the worst characters in this movie are Hilary Faye and Pastor Skip. In the first place, I love Martin Donovan, and if anybody likes the chemistry that he has with Mary Louise Parker in this movie, you should watch the first couple seasons of Weeds, because they are love interests, and she's a drug dealer, and he's a DEA agent, and it's amazing. Leaving that aside, my issue is that Pastor Skip and Hilary Faye are the two people in this movie who are the most committed to their faith. Except for Mary, but Mary is committed in a very pure and honest way. In a place that makes her obviously the most sympathetic character in the movie, because she's like, God told me to do this and now I'm being punished. But Hilary Faye and Pastor Skip are doing it in a way that like subjugates others almost. Like the way that they are so committed to what is not correct, and the way that everybody else around them, including Tia and Pastor Skip's son, Patrick, like all of them are like, this is maybe not right. And even like, what is Macaulay Culkin's name? I always forget. Roland. Everybody else except for Hilary Faye and Pastor Skip are questioning their faith for the entire movie. And that is the interesting part to me.
It's where religion is not religion. It's oh my God, I'm trying to say 5 things at the same time. Holy cow, my brain just short-circuited.
I feel like we've been doing that with all of the episodes we recorded this weekend.
But we've cared about them because we got to pick ones. And so it's like, I have so many things that I want to say, and I want to say them all, and I want to say them correctly. But I always sort of liked Pastor Skip, and I'm totally willing to admit that maybe it's handsome blonde guy that I'm blinded, distracted by.
Yeah, Martin Donovan is very appealing.
I think he's misguided. I don't think he's cruel. And the thing that challenges that the most is at the end where he's trying to reestablish order. And this brings me to my second point, which, you know, religion may have started off as like something intensely intimate and spiritual and stuff, but very quickly it was corrupted by power. It is in its current most prominent state, it is control, and in particular a way to subjugate and to control women and sexuality. That's its main purpose in modern society. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think you can't be religious or spiritual in a good way. I don't think that everybody who is bad. I think that this is so vast in a way that, like Pastor Skip says, this isn't gray, it's black and white. And I was like, oh no, but it's so gray.
It's definitely not black and white. And that, I think, is the biggest thing for me. Is I have no issue with individual spirituality or religiousness or anything like that. If your faith brings you comfort and it works for you, I want you to have that. I don't have that, and it sounds nice. Like, that part of it sounds nice. I would like to have that kind of faith in something. And
you could have it, Kristen. Let me tell you about Jesus.
No, thank you. But the problem for me is that all of these people got together in big groups, and they're like, my way is the only right way. And that's the thing that like makes me the most incensed about organized religion. Is it's like, because I believe that I'm a good person. I think that I put out into the world what I want to get back. And I try not to be mean. I donate what I can to charity, and like, I do all these things. I treat my neighbor how I want to be treated, but I do it by myself, and I'm not doing it to appease a man in the sky. And then that is the thing that I think more people could realize, is that you don't have to be held accountable for the way that you act, because if you're only doing the right thing because you're going to be held accountable, you're not doing the right thing.
If the only thing keeping a person decent is the expectation of divine reward, then, brother, that person is a piece of shit.
We get to a point where I don't understand how more people don't see it this way, but we're very much like, I've said this a few times, but like with this movie, we're very much like my modern human interpretation of a text, a 2,000-year-old text that has been translated through time and space, and we don't give it that resonance. Resonance. What was I trying to say? To revere? Reverence.
Reverence. Yeah, I was like,
it was in there. Reverence.
I was like, I know what you're trying to say, but I couldn't get the word fast enough.
We, in so many ways, are living in a reality that was conceived and constructed in the first 50 years of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And we think it's old. And I mean, this is not necessarily what I'm trying to go into. I'm not trying to have an abortion debate right here, but it does slightly come into with this movie.
Yeah. With
unwanted teen pregnancy. It's like this fight, this pro-life movement is a relatively new movement.
Yeah.
It's not old. It's not in the Bible. It's not in, I mean, I literally can remember, I've said before, but my great-grandfather founded a church, and my great-grandmother was pro-choice. And she said on numerous occasions, she said there are some babies that aren't meant to be born.
Yeah.
I'm so frustrated that we all have this kind of like collective amnesia, and we pretend that what we're dealing with is so finite and so worked out right in front of us, when it's not. A wonderful example of how these kids are completely left to their own devices up Schitt's Creek by the people who are supposed to be leading and protecting them.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because they're trained to believe certain things and to feel certain ways. And Mary has a wonderful, perfect boyfriend in Dean, and he's so cute.
Cute.
So sweet. And this is one of those that I love, where it's like a rather chaste depiction of homosexuality.
Yeah.
With the exception of the weird leather.
Just let that
child.
Go.
Yeah, I don't believe he was into like leather. But
well, I always felt that he sort of just got his hands on the first thing he could.
Very true. That's better than mine. Yeah. Well, it's how people quote unquote get lost. It's like, well, you push me out there and then get mad at me for resorting to what was available to me.
Right.
And
exactly.
so we have this young girl, Mary, who's being educated in a Christian high school, and she has a gay boyfriend who confides in her for comfort and help and convinces herself that it's her duty to save him. This is incredibly noble on her part, that she makes her own sexuality and purpose about protecting him.
I mean, you could call it noble, but it's also pretty gross because she takes on the onus of his quote unquote damage. And that's like a really bad thing that happens in a lot of this fundamental Christianity where it's like the woman is in charge.
Yeah, I don't mean noble as in admirable. I mean noble as in she's selfless. She's behaving in a selfless manner and prioritizing him.
Yeah.
Because she thinks she can help him. And it's a struggle for her that the movie does depict.
Yeah.
And she determines that the sin of premarital sex is less than the sin of homosexuality. And it's a bullet she's willing to take for him. And they don't have sex ed. That we know. Yep. So they are uneducated to the realities of what they're dealing with. Because when he finds out later, he even says, but it was our first time. I mean, they're clueless as to what they're actually dealing with. And then suddenly the onus is entirely on her. She is alone and screwed. And the people in her family, in her life, failed her. And she is going to be blamed for it and cast aside for it. And it just shows how absolutely broken and corrupt the system is. And I don't know why we're somehow getting more of that.
Yeah. No, because I remember when I first saw this and I was like, God, well, at least it can only get better. And it just went hard the other way.
We had a similar conversation, and I feel weird saying these things because they think it makes me sound like an apologist and stuff. But we had a similar conversation in
Boy Erased,
where there's the scene where, oh my God, I forgot his name. Taylor Swift's boyfriend.
Oh, Joe Alwyn?
Yeah. The scene where Joe Alwyn and, oh my God, I forgot his name. Boy.
Lucas Hedges.
Lucas Hedges. They have this connection. They have this vibe. They quite literally kind of fall in love at first sight, and neither knows what to do with it. And unfortunately, Joe Alwyn takes a cue from his his fanatic religious nature and decides to squish it down into a negative thing, and that results in him raping him. And it's like, I'm not saying that he's blameless because I know he chose to act on this, but I'm saying he really was set up for failure by the system that he was reared in. And it's like, this is how you get these terrible outcomes. And it's just so sad and so tragic to me in a way that also this movie manages to navigate it with some pep in its step. You know what I mean? It manages.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, it's one of the things that I'm most glad about how I was raised, that I had like no shame when I lost my virginity in college. I just was like, I don't know.
I referred to your hair as virgin hair once in front of your parents, and you freaked out.
Just because I didn't have shame that I did it doesn't mean I wanted to talk about it with my family.
Yes, but also that virgin hair is a technical term. It was the part of your hair that
No, I understand the whole point of it, but
that story requires way too much
explanation.
Sorry, go ahead.
But that's the thing, is like, it was never in my mind that I had to wait till I was married. It like not ever once was that like preached about. Like, my parents were sort of like, you know, make sure that it's not just like whatever, like make it special and like make sure it's someone that you trust and who's going to be nice to you. But that, I think, is way more important than waiting till you're married, especially because I think waiting till you're married is a bad idea, because what if they're bad at sex? What if the other person is bad at
just
sex?
Incompatible. It's like, that doesn't make somebody bad if you're fundamentally...
What if they're bad at sex for you?
But it's like the wait until marriage fits into this like idealized version where sex means missionary for 20 minutes to have however many kids.
Yeah,
like...
which don't get me started on that. I like, if there's one thing that would make the world a better place, in my opinion, it is comprehensive sex education for everybody and easy, cheap access to whatever kind of birth control you feel is right for you. If only the world had that, it would be so much better. And there
within
just
like
is
5 years, it would be noticeably.
Totally.
Like,
because that's what we get to. Like at the end of this movie, Mary ends up, you know, she wants the baby. She's going to keep the baby. She's going to raise it with Dean and Patrick. Exactly. But the
how
problem,
happy Dean is, that is so
happy.
cute.
So happy, so cute. Patrick doesn't have a care in the world about it. It's delightful. The problem, though, is that is very rarely the case. And you get all of these unwanted children who are raised in a way usually that makes them feel unwanted. And then they don't get access to things. They don't care about things. It's a tragedy. It's like a huge, huge tragedy all across the world, but especially in America. And it just is so easily fixable, and just people don't want to because birth control is from the devil. And it's just absolutely not.
Well, it's like we all have to pretend that this isn't the reality because some housewife in the Midwest doesn't like to imagine having sex. Like,
yeah, sorry, you made your bed. You did this to yourself. That's not my fault. Your kids should have access to birth control.
Anyways, well, you mentioned Patrick, I was going to say, and that's also one of the reasons why I've had a slight soft spot for Pastor Skip is I was like, he raised Patrick, so somewhere...
Yeah, but I think Patrick's mom had more to do with that than Pastor Skip did.
I always thought of Pastor Skip as flawed, but not bad.
Well, he comes around at the end, so I agree with you to a point, but it's like, he's so harsh about it for so long that it just is like, come on, man.
It's funny, though. I don't think he is. I think Hilary faked, because even when they're at the prom, he's like, now, come on, let them stay and stuff. And
yeah, but then almost immediately the Mercy House kids come and he's like, you can't be here. It's black and white, blah, 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 blah. He doesn't fully come around until he's in the hospital parking lot and Mary Louise Parker sees him with the flowers, like arguing with himself about whether or not he's going to come in.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a hard-learned lesson sometimes.
I 100% agree. I'm not, no judgment on that front. I just think he's not he comes around last.
There was even when I was younger, like I said, my great-grandfather founded a church, and it was, you know, my grandmother was the preacher's daughter and all that. And so it was something that my family would say to me when I was younger, is that I should be a preacher because they could tell that I was a good storyteller and I had leadership qualities and stuff. And I remember being from a very young age and being like, I don't want that. I don't want. No, but it's like I saw it as a duty, as a responsibility. I was like, I don't want people's souls on my hand.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, what if I'm wrong? Like, what if I don't lead them the right way? I was like, I can't be held responsible for that. And so it's the whole kind of power and corruption thing. And it's like, I don't think he's corrupt, but I think he takes his position as a leader very seriously. And I think he buys into bad information, like bad leadership qualities.
Oh, definitely.
And I think he's capable of being an excellent leader, but he needs the kick in the ass. And that does bring us to Mary Louise Parker. Is there such a thing as a bad, good mom?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's Mary Louise Parker in this movie.
Because at her foundation, at her core, she's actually an excellent mother, but she gets lost.
Yeah. No, for sure. Especially, it's especially interesting because she gets lost in pursuit of Pastor Skip. And so I think like half of the fundamentalism that we see from Mary Louise Parker is in trying to woo Pastor Skip. Like, she likes him so much that she like gets super into the Christianity in a way that had she not sort of fallen for Pastor Skip, I'm not sure that she would have gone that far. I feel like Mary would have felt more able to tell her she was pregnant.
Well, because I think a lot of people would criticize her as being bad and self-centered. And while I don't think that she's I don't think she's not self-centered. She has a couple lines that recontextualize her entire performance at the end, where it's like, well, for starters, in the middle, she does ask Mary, she says, are you okay? Should I be worried about you? And Mary is kind of like, yeah, no, blah, blah, blah. And then later, when they do find out she's pregnant and Pastor Skip is like, how did you not know? She's like, I noticed she had gained weight, but I was trying to not give her a complex. Yeah. And so it's like, I can see how fear of doing the wrong thing could prevent you from doing the right thing.
100%.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
completely.
Sometimes doing nothing is the worst. Like, doing the wrong thing could be better. Who knows? But, and I think that's part of what makes parenting so hard. When they say it doesn't come with a manual, it's that's what they mean. It's like, you have to make choices that are going to define a human being. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It is funny to me because I cringed a little bit going back to watch this because I was afraid it was going to be one of the ones that I remembered being better than it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pleasantly surprised about how good and how, I'll definitely say solid, and how deep a lot of it actually is. And I mean, some of it was a little silly in a way that didn't bother me when I was 19, you know?
Yeah.
And it definitely is a product of its time. I love the George W. Bush portrait hanging up in their classroom. Do we want to talk at all about the greatest character in this movie? And that is Heather Matarazzo's Tia.
Oh my God. First of all, I love her to absolute bits all of the time. She's also in the Princess Diaries in like a vaguely similar role. I just think she's so much fun. The way she delivers certain lines is just amazing. Yeah. We can talk about Tia.
She's like a weird audience surrogate in the movie because she says the things we're thinking, and she's corruptible. Because at first I wrote she was the only good person in the movie, especially when they show them praying and she's like praying that her father will quit drinking.
Yeah.
Which makes that scene with Hilary Faye. And that's the moment where I was like, she's horrible. Where she's like, you smell like Tia's father.
Yeah, it's bad.
Like,
it's really bad.
Mean. She does get corrupted by Hilary Faye. However, she does maintain her compass. And
yeah, I was going to say, she doesn't get corrupted for long.
All of their fucking hair.
It's awful. Well, Mandy Moore's is the worst, but they're all terrible.
The flippy hair they all have going to school for the first day. It's so funny. It's too real in some ways. I wonder if this movie just didn't have a wig budget, because this was when Mandy Moore had short hair. And so they just gave her extensions, and all it creates is a mullet that is so terrible it veers into iconic.
Yeah.
It's like such a commitment to such a bad hairstyle that I kind of wouldn't want it another way.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect on her, because you know that she saw it in like some Christian women's magazine and was like, I gotta do it.
I never thought about it.
Yeah, well, like, if you're thinking about Hilary Faye, you know she's looking at shit like that at home. And she's just like, oh my God, this will be the perfect senior year haircut. And it just is so unflattering.
Because I knew Mandy Moore had short hair. I never thought about it in the context.
Yeah.
That's so good. Oh my God. Oh, I love it now. But also, because I think it had to do, because this is a very low budget indie film, I think it had to do with shooting. But Mary Louise Parker has like 5 different hairstyles in this movie.
Yeah.
In a way that I don't think was in the script.
Yeah, I don't know.
The DVD had a commentary, but I don't have it with me. You have it. And
I didn't watch it. Sorry.
Well, I ended up watching it on Vudu for free with ads every 20 minutes. There were no cuts. It's just every 20 minutes there were 3 commercials. They had the decency to drop down to 2 and also not be the same commercial every time.
No, that's not bad.
The world is hemorrhaging money right now. I cannot be buying movies I already have. Do you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, it's hilarious how cute and also how lame Patrick is.
Yes, he is the cutest. I love Patrick Fugit. I would love him to do more things. I think the last thing I saw him in was Gone Girl, which was now ages ago.
Him. He does. Okay, he looks good. Yeah.
Yeah, he looks great. To this day, one of my favorite line deliveries in the history of cinema is when she's like, are you going to strap me to the back of your scooter? And he just goes, scooter? Mary, this is a Vespa. He's like so earnest about it. I just love like how much better a Vespa is than a scooter. I can't handle it. It's the cutest thing.
Well, because he's such a doofus.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's in this like beautifully high school way that rivals 8th grade. Like,
oh, yes.
For whatever reason, this movie made me think of 8th grade more than once. So I think there's something to be said there.
The movie 8th grade, not just the feeling of 8th grade.
Yes. We really have had a Jena Maloney week, haven't we?
Malone.
I know. I was saying Jena Malone.
Oh, Jena Malone E. Okay, yes. Yeah. Yes, we have. We have had a week.
Her name is Jena Malone. We should just watch Catching Fire.
Yeah, right, just for shits. I can finally make you watch Stepmom.
She's very good in this, though.
Yeah, she's very good in this, too.
And also, just as a note, they would never perform Jesus Christ Superstar in this school.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ Superstar is controversial.
It's very controversial. Also, it just is like putting Patrick up there with like golden underwear.
Golden Speedo.
So
and then
silly.
The fucking way that Hilary, Faye, and what's the other, is it Veronica, are fake something crying. Like that. They're just like, and that song they sing in the beginning is so terrible. It's terrible.
It's very bad, yeah.
Do you want to talk at all about Christian music?
I really don't want to talk about Christian music unless you want to tell that story about how you were tricked into liking a band for like 5 weeks until you realized that the lyrics were all extremely Christian.
Hillsong United is a band that has a very popular song called Oceans. And I listened to this song several times. And I don't listen to lyrics often. I allow, it's kind of like a synesthesia thing. I allow my brain to just like run rampant with the sounds and everything. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I'll hear words, but they're more like abstract poetry. And sometimes, and you can account for this, I'll listen to a song that I know and I'll be like, holy shit, this song is about something out of pocket. Like, so the chorus of Oceans is, Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. It was the word savior where I keyed in, because it's honestly, that's beautiful poetry, you know?
Yeah, it's nice. It sounds nice. But then you're like, oh, wait a minute.
And then I had heard the word savior and I was like, wait a minute. This is about Jesus. It honestly reminds me of that Maria Bamford bit where she's like, I wouldn't get mad, but you've tried to trick me before.
No, it's a teen center. It's a community-based health initiatives and a pregnancy. Yeah, it's church. I wouldn't get mad, but they have tried to trick me. Want to come to a show? It's a clean show. Sure, where's it at? Cool new coffee shop. Oh yeah, what's it called? Crossroads. No! Stop lurking behind your Jimi Hendrix font. If they want to get the numbers in and do the switcheroo, just call it something everybody wants to go to. You coming on down to Sex Hole? Yes! She didn't have to advertise. Sex Hole? Everybody wants to go to Sex Hole.
And it's like how they'll pretend it's a coffee shop or like a youth group or something, and you have to be like, but what does that mean?
Yeah,
like they're just trying to get you in the door so they can like gypsy switch, and it's like, it's so funny you brought it up because I know I've told it a few times, but I feel like nobody's ever listening to me, so I always wondered if I almost feel like the second I start talking about it, people are like, oh no, this is about Jesus. But I went to tell Rachel about it one time, and I didn't even get like 5 words into the story. And she goes, oh, is it Hillsong? And I was like, how did you know? And she was like, they got me too.
They got me too. Amazing.
So it's actually great, like, because the Ocean song is on my creative playlist. I still like play it when I'm like writing and being creative and stuff. But and there was another artist named Toby Mac. I like his stuff. It's not quite as heavy handed. It's there, but he's like more of a pop, like almost even a little bit rap, like hip hop. I do like him, But what is it about it that is so cringy? I mean, do you think it's because it feels like someone's trying to sell you something? Is that what it is?
The Christian music?
Yeah.
I think it feels like trying too hard. It's like they're trying to do like rock music, which is at its core very anti-establishment. But they're trying to do it for the establishment, and it's like, I don't think you know what that means. Like what you're doing, I don't think you know what it means.
Because I was going to say, I mean, singing about God is one of the oldest forms of expression. So I was like, on one hand, it should be very, and I mean, I like choral, like Ave Maria and Christmas carols and stuff. But I was like, what is it about it specifically about Christian rock that is so terrible? And I think you're right. I think it's because you can feel them trying.
Yeah, you can feel them. You can feel them like shoving square words into a round hole, and it's like pulling Bible phrases to shove them into rock music. I don't know. It's very unsettling.
Because you have no issue with like Ave Maria, right?
No, that's the thing we were talking about when we did what's the other Jesus movie we just did?
Prince of
Egypt. I really like hymns and stuff, and I really appreciate the pomp and circumstance of like Catholicism. So yes, Ave Maria is beautiful, but it's also very stuffy. It's it's a church song.
Yeah, it feels honest.
Yeah, but it's doing like when I am like I want to listen to Ave Maria. I want to listen to Ave Maria. I don't sit down and be like, I wonder if there's a hard rock version of Ave Maria that's like the opposite of what I'm trying to do. So it's like in my opinion, there is church music and there is secular music, and they don't go together for me. I know they do for some people, but also, and this is maybe more a failing of me because I cannot get beyond the people who listen to it. And like, there's the scene that's not so bad in this movie where they're at the like Christian rock concert, but they're like legitimately dancing. But what I can't handle is like what's probably happening and I Still Believe when there's just like a shitload of people putting their hands in the air and their heads down and really feeling the Jesus. I cannot handle that. That really unsettles me.
Okay. I was going to say, it reminds me of that South Park. I don't know that I ever made you watch this one. There's a South Park episode where Cartman figures out that they could be a Christian rock band and you can just sing regular songs, but you replace baby with Jesus. And of course it goes wrong because he's talking about how he wants to make love to you, Jesus. And like,
don't ever leave me, Jesus. I couldn't stand to see you go. My heart would simply snap, my Lord, if you walked on out that door. I promise I'll be good to you and keep you warm at night. Jesus, 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 why don't we just shut off the light?
It's pretty good. I think this movie is the most famous for the exorcism scene.
Yes.
And it's got to be like that could go in movie montages and I wouldn't bat an eye.
No.
Especially the way that Jena Malone, I forget what she says about, you wouldn't know the first thing about love. And Hilary literally throws the Bible at her.
Yeah, she really hucks it pretty hard.
Yeah, she hucks this Bible at her and hits her with it and screams, I am filled with Christ's love.
Yeah.
And Jena Malone picks up the Bible and just goes, this is not a weapon.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's good. It's like, if they did one thing, they did that. And the fucking exorcist music that's playing while they're trying to have
it's incredible. It's such a funny scene. And it's also pretty horrifying because Hilary Faye believes so strongly that she's going to succeed in exorcising Mary. And it's just like, what do you think is happening here?
We haven't really talked about Cassandra or Roland, which
I was going to say we would be remiss if we did not bring them up.
They're pretty standard character types, but done so well. Especially the moment, because Cassandra is giving Mary a hard time very deliberately, and they're in the bathroom and she's like accusing her of being pregnant and Mary's like denying it. And then Cassandra says something about like, if you want some money, I know a couple or something. And Mary just says, I'm not going to sell and then she catches herself. And within a second, Cassandra's entire demeanor changes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that she was prodding her on purpose to get that reaction. I think she was prodding her in order to break through so that she could help. I think Cassandra, at her heart, is a good person.
I do too, but I think Cassandra was honestly mad at her for lying, for being fake. And then the second that she revealed the truth, I think that's when Cassandra was like, she needs my help. It's like, I think she just needed I mean, I'll accept your version too, but because it's so true. There are always those handful of outcasts that will always be there. Like they will always have your back. And it's like, also Roland's so funny.
Well, Macaulay Culkin is amazing.
You're a big fan of the Culkins.
I do. I love all three Culkins. Kieran is my favorite, but Macaulay was my first favorite. I mourn the career he could have had if only he'd had a different dad, because his dad was such an asshole and made him support the family when he was so little. Mm-hmm. But I love him every time he pops up in something. I think he is so funny. I think he's really good at comedic timing, and I think he's pretty good at drama too. I just think the whole Culkin family is incredible, but I think that Macaulay Culkin has always been extremely underrated as an actual talent.
Well, and even just the character of Roland, there's something so funny about the fact that he is light years ahead of everyone else. And yes, I know it's distance and not time, regardless.
Sure, but yes.
He's just so over it, but it's not in a way that he's opting out of it. It's he's so far past them. Yeah. And all the stuff with Hilary and how horribly she uses him. Mm-hmm. It's this is definitely a movie of its time because they say retard a few times. And I was
so many times.
Oh, I was like, that's not.
So many times I was like, oh God.
And I laughed so hard at Hilary's reaction to the news that Dean is gay.
Oh,
when Mary finally tells them and she's like, oh.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to me. And because she calls him several things, I can't even remember. It's more intense than pervert. But it's just man, it's a lot. It's a lot to watch. I also just love the opening, the underwater scene. That's so cute and so innocent.
Yeah, well, it's also another one of those things that we've talked about in a couple of movies like this, including 8th Grade. And I think, we didn't end up talking about Booksmart, but they do it in Booksmart. And then the movie Henry Gamble's Birthday Party, where the characters sort of
I'm glad you brought that up. I meant to bring up Henry Gamble.
They have an epiphany under the water in a swimming pool. Mm-hmm. It happens in literally all of those movies, and it's a coming of age thing, and for a handful of them it's a gay thing, and it's an interesting use of water that apparently everybody's been in on this whole time. And it was only after Booksmart came out that did we start putting the dots together.
Dean was at Mercy House for a year. That's too long.
Yeah, a whole school year.
I also like the implication that his mother's the awful one. That one scene with his mom and dad, his dad seems a little bit
his dad. His dad, I think, seems a little bit more surprised, but his mom is disgusted by it.
Yeah, and it's you don't see that dynamic often, and I appreciated it here. And that one shot though, when they're laying in bed and his roommate's asleep and he's just staring at him, it's so heartbreaking. And it's so rewarding when they show up together at the end. And fucking Mary, this is so funny, and this is such a it's a real thing.
But it's such an uninformed question.
It's so ignorant. It's well-meaning, and it's ignorant and overcompensating, where he's like, Mary, this is my, and she's like, your life partner?
Yeah, and it's we're all still 18. It's very new.
Boyfriend. You can say it.
Yeah.
And I mean, that ending is super unrealistic, but you gotta love it. And it represents something bigger than that specific story, you know?
I mean, I don't necessarily think it's unrealistic as much as it's a statistical anomaly. I believe that could happen, but I don't think it's what happens usually.
Oh my God, we've been talking for an hour.
Fuck off, we have not.
50 minutes.
Jesus. Well, I fucking like this movie. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it was good. I wrote down the only reason Christian girls come down to the Planned Parenthood, and he says she's planning a pipe bomb.
That's the kind of thing, like his delivery of that was incredible. He's so good. I love Macaulay Culkin.
Will dance for food.
Yeah. And I love that he went as for Halloween as a roller skate. It's very funny.
I do like Ava Amore, and she's not been in a ton. She's her mother's daughter, though, I tell you.
Yeah. She has a handful of, she's in a handful of episodes of New Girl. I just recently finished a rewatch, and she's in the middle for like 5 episodes.
It was funny, though, the entire time that I was reading Catching Fire, because I read it before I saw the movie, I was picturing her as Joanna.
Oh, funny.
And then when they cast Jena Malone, I was like, so close.
Yeah, it's very close. Almost.
I just glanced at my note where Pastor Steve was like, that looks so fat.
Oh, yeah, Pastor Skip. He has so many moments where he says something that's like trying to be really hip, and it's just 100% not. And it actually reminds me of my dad in a way, because I remember when we lived in, it's a story. I remember when we lived in Maryland, he worked at Coast Guard headquarters in DC, and he had these 2 young female colleagues, like early mid-20s. And so he would sometimes just say things that he had either heard me talking about or heard on the radio or something. And so they would basically be like, yeah, Mr. J, randomly hip. And so he like clings to that still. And the other day he was telling me a story about what's going on with my grandmother's estate and stuff. And he was like, just don't talk about any of this on Facebook or whatever. And I was like, Dad, please, I'm not on Facebook anymore. And he goes, okay, well, like TikTok or whatever. And I was like, Dad, I absolutely don't have TikTok. And he was like, that's just a randomly hip word I heard. I thought I'd throw it in there. I was like, you are ridiculous.
I mean, he was correct. That's the...
Yeah, he's correct. It's a thing, but it just is. It was like every once in a while he would say something that they would know about, and they would just be like, yeah, Mr. J. And I always thought it was hysterical. All right, well, we hope that everybody has a really happy Easter. And again, please don't go to church. There is a global pandemic. It will be very bad if you gather with lots of people. Please worship in your home if that is your inclination. You can follow us on Twitter @SoI'mWatching. You can follow us on Instagram @SoI'mWatchingTheShow. We also have a website, soI'mWatching.com, that links out to everything. And other than that, you can rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen. And that's it for us.
Bye.
Bye.
God only knows what I'd be without you. Boom, 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 boom.
If you should ever leave me, well, life would still go on, believe me. The world could shine.